Face the sack, take the rap.
Far from taking the rap, I dismissed Staunton due to very serious allegations about his conduct.
But don't take your crap.
This isn't normal politics. This has gone from 0 to 100 in just a couple of days.
These are the interesting times. Hello everyone, my name's Matt Johnston and welcome to The Interesting Times, a political comedy show from right here in the UK. It's been a war of words between sacked chairman of Post Office Limited Henry Staunton and should have been sacked by the government and soon to be sacked by the British people, Secretary of State for Business and Trade Kemi Badenoch. Staunton was sacked by Badenoch for reasons which we'll get to. And he only found out when Sky News contacted him to ask, presumably, how he planned to spend his retirement. To which he said, "What?" But that's not the issue here. Badenoch has been clear that somebody from her department leaked the story.
We have no idea how Sky News found out the information. There are several thousand people who work at the Department for Business and Trade.
Staunton then went to the Times, or the Times approached him, it's not clear. But the Sunday Times lit a fuse with an exclusive from Staunton saying he'd been advised to stall payments to sub-postmasters and that he'd been fired as someone had to take the rap. Kemi Badenoch did what anyone wanting to refute allegations would do and went straight onto social media, calling him a liar, threatening him with the law and challenging him to a dance-off on TikTok. At least I presume that would have been the next step. She says that actually he was let go for bullying allegations, which Staunton says he was not aware of. Kemi called him out in Parliament on Monday afternoon.
It is so disappointing that he's chosen to spread a series of falsehoods, provide made-up anecdotes to journalists, and leak discussions held in confidence. First of all, I haven't said that thousands of people knew that Henry Staunton was being sacked. I said there are thousands of people who work in the department, and it could have been anybody who put that out there.
So, you've got a government department that's leakier than a one-hole sieve. Great.
She mentions that these are scandals that have been going over decades. I would like to remind her that the Horizon scandal happened and started under a Labour government. It is this government that is beginning to fix it.
Again, not true. The Horizon was brought in under John Major's government, as this rather excellent factual and multi-award winning programme pointed out. Hey, if they're allowed to lie, so am I.
So she knew that this had already been leaked to Sky News from somebody in her department, presumably.
The tone today will send to the sub-postmasters. I'll say this, it's more cover-up, more ossification, so get it out there, explain what's going on and give the information. Otherwise, you will not have the trust. It's just more of the same we've seen over many, many years.
Would the Secretary of State be willing to refer herself to the ethics advisor?
So rather than taking to Twitter, isn't the right rejoinder on this to become the first Secretary of State to say, actually, we should put out to an independent body management of compensation schemes involving government so that everybody could have confidence?
Kemi Badenoch was getting it from all angles. Will nobody speak up for the embattled Secretary of State for Business and Trade?
Lee Anderson.
Anyone else?
Madam Deputy Speaker, Nalan, I am absolutely staggered that the Labour Party now seem to be coming out in support of the disgraced Post Office management team. This, by the way, Madam Deputy Speaker, is the same management team that oversaw the wrongful imprisonment of constituents, of postmasters across the country, hundreds of convictions.
Not according to the Conservative Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State in the Department for Business and Trade in the House of Lords, Lord Awful of Gravel.
There hasn't been a prosecution since 2015, and there's no one on the board of the Post Office today that was involved in the prosecutions. So the current board is a completely different board than the one it was before.
When one of your backers is about 20 brain cells away from being reclassified as Moss, then you've got to worry.
So does my right honourable friend agree with me that when push comes to shove, that lot over there would take the side of the grifters, not the grafters?
Don't you have a GB News show to get back to? So, could there be a reason that the government has delayed payments to the sub-postmasters?
We need to, for a start, to cut taxes. We've got an opportunity on the 6th of March, when we have the budget, to reduce taxes. Conservative Party is nothing if it's not a low-tax party, and the taxes are far too high, and everyone recognises that.
Would you prioritise tax cuts over compensating the Post Office?
Well, I don't believe that question arises.
It just arose, just now, with you sitting in the studio. And this is the point. How much financial caca are we in when we can't properly compensate sub-postmasters? So, who to believe? Kemi Badenoch.
My knowledge of Kemi is when she was a new MP, she rang me and she fessed up to hacking into Harriet Harman's email.
Or Henry Staunton.
Senior people in Whitehall think that something rings true about what Henry Staunton's saying.
That's right. So I spoke to one senior Whitehall figure who backed up one of his claims.
Kemi Badenoch.
In December, the Cabinet Minister for Equalities told this House that she had engaged, and I quote, extensively with LGBT organisations. A Freedom of Information answer published this week reveals that, in fact, the Minister hasn't met a single LGBT organisation.
Or Henry Staunton.
They extended the deadline for which some postmasters would get paid compensation to August 2025. So it kind of, part of what Mr Staunton says kind of rings true.
Kemi Badenoch.
The offers that have been made to people like Alan Bates from the JFSBA, the man who's started this, is why we're here. The derisory offer that they made to him and to Lee Castleton as well. None of them have been compensated.
Or Henry Staunton.
I've spoken to people close to Henry Staunton who say he had literally not the faintest idea there had been this allegation.
Yeah, it's a toughie. The problem is that these are the Tories. It's not that they can't speak the truth, but that they're just unable to recognise it and so react with it with anger because they don't know what it is. Like when you put a courgette behind a cat or when a dog sees its reflection, it just freaks them out. And it's getting to the point where pointing it out is just cruel. But that doesn't mean we should stop. For example, the Office for Budget Responsibility said the government's spending plans beyond 2025 were a work of fiction, then apologised presumably to all the fiction writers, as they said at least fiction requires some attention to detail. Then there was Liz Truss, spending 49 days as Prime Minister, beaten by a lettuce, knocking £30 billion off the economy, and whose poll ratings were only slightly better than Vladimir Putin, heading a movement called the Popular Conservatives. And then there's Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Laura Trott, seen here doing a one-times table in her head, who was pulled up by the UK Statistics Authority, who say her claims on tax savings from 2010 could leave people misled or at least confused. But misled or confused is how Laura Trott goes into every interview. She only wants the British public to have the same understanding of tax that she does. But there really is no clearer representative case of the disconnect that exists between the concept of truth and the concept of the Conservative Party than the Home Secretary James Cleverly tweeting about fraud, then getting community noted for making misleading claims about fraud. And to all those of you who leave me comments below about how this stuff writes itself, yes, honestly, putting on a suit and tie, a mankini, that's for the OnlyFans, and lensless glasses, you have to wonder what's the point. I might as well just do a daily live stream from Parliament. The other point is that so much of this seems to be she's lying, he's lying, when actually she's definitely lying. But so what? He hardly comes out of this smelling of roses. I mean, who the hell, after being told, see if you can't store those payments, Henry, old boy, we've got an election to win, decides, okay, seems reasonable, I'll just make an electronic note to myself so I don't forget. Remember to screw over people who have already been screwed over working for the company. And send. Okay, Tories lying isn't an exclusive, I appreciate, but you've got to hand it to them. When it comes to the lie, they can obfuscate so much that it can be hard to keep up. This is just from the post office scandal for the last 24 hours. Each lie is a different angle from different ministers.
The point that Henry Staunton was making is that he was told to stall payouts, and we do know from some sub-postmasters that they have put in their claims for compensation and they are yet to receive a payout at all.
I don't accept or recognise that. We are encouraging postmasters to come forward. I just don't recognise anything to the contrary of that.
Mr. Speaker, as the Business Secretary said on Monday, she asked Henry Staunton to step down after serious concerns were raised. Mr. Speaker, it is worth bearing in mind that, as the Business Secretary said on Monday, she asked Henry Staunton to step down after serious concerns were raised.
Former chair of the Post Office Board is alleging that senior civil servants told him to stall sub-postmasters until the election. Is there any truth in that?
I'm afraid I haven't seen that story. I haven't seen the details of it, and not even the headlines. So you're a step ahead of me, but that's not something that I've seen.
Well, a significant row has broken out between your cabinet colleague Kemi Badenoch and the former chairman of the Post Office. Will the government be releasing notes of the key conversation when the Secretary of State fired Henry Staunton in order to back up its version of events, that what he has said is a pack of lies?
Well, I'm sure they will, make a statement or release something.
Well, all I can say is I don't recall. I mean, first of all, this is an appalling miscarriage of justice. And anyone who's been involved in government in any way over the last 20 years has got to be extremely sorry, as I am, about what has happened.
But we are working hard to get victims not just the answers, but the compensation they deserve.
Not just smoke and mirrors, more like getting tear gassed in a kaleidoscope. And that's it. No time to talk about the fact that I now have access to the Prime Minister's phone. All right, let's see. General election now, and send.
One of the biggest issues
You are a disgrace. Send.
Grapple with every day is the...
Stick your 5-point plan.
Is the impact of...
Where the sun don't shine, and send. Might as well just write a letter. Glad to see you've got access to messages. Have those WhatsApps turned up yet? Oh, thrown his phone down. It's looking like Sunak's gone Ofcom there, which is appropriate as Ofcom have launched an investigation into his Q&A with GB News, which has received 500 complaints. And I have to say, I am shocked. 500 people watched that? I can imagine what the complaints were, though. Hello, Ofcom? I just watched Rishi Sunak for an hour on GB News. My complaint? Yes, my complaint is I just watched Rishi Sunak for an hour on GB News. Where do I put my expenses claim in? No time to talk about Scott Benton, former Minister for Gamblers Anonymous, who has failed in his appeal to get a 35-day suspension overturned, meaning he could face a recall petition which would trigger another by-election. Oh, Rishi, this is turning into a slow and frankly agonising death for the Conservative Party! No time to talk about lack of awareness Lee Anderson, who met up with the other half of the dopey double act, Nick Fletcher, for a meet and greet in Doncaster and had their own welcome party. And Lee, ever one to try to build bridges with others of a different opinion, went out with 3 cold fried prawns on an ashtray and was then surprised when nobody took him up on his generous offer for food. Come on, with us in charge, you never know when you might eat again. To be fair, Lee, you can't blame anyone for refusing any restaurant food, bearing in mind what the waiters are likely to have put in it once they realised it was for you. No time to talk about the fact that it looks like the Tories are correct about one thing, though.
Senior Tory sources have admitted that more than 100 Tory MPs could resign before the next election. Some people are predicting that it could be as many as 150, jumping ship in a record-breaking desertion of the party. Now,
so they're a sinking ship. Why so?
Yeah, the UK Conservative government's like the Titanic. It's hit the iceberg, it's going down. The captain's on the bridge still trying to be very cheerful, but everyone's getting in the lifeboats.
Load the torpedoes! No time to talk about the fact that it was the National Farmers Union Conference yesterday. But that's not the reason you can smell bullshit.
And you can trust us to deliver because we already are. You said you wanted a fair price for your products. Tomorrow, we're laying new regulations for the dairy sector, and we're launching a review of the poultry sector. You asked for fair treatment in our trade deals, so we're standing up for farmers in those negotiations. And that's why I say to all of you and to Britain's farmers, just as I did in my very first speech in Parliament, I've got your back.
Which is where he plans on putting his knife. Also, the cheques in the post.
I'll be totally honest, it's a work in progress, but we are making progress. I'll just give you a few examples. First of all, we rolled over the EU-New Zealand SPS deal, so that's been quite helpful in the facilitations that you're asking about. We've reached specific agreements with a couple of different countries. I probably won't remember all of them. But
no wonder the farmers want to send him a pretty clear message. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you have enjoyed these vids, then please like, subscribe, hit all the bells, but share. Please share. And I'll see you all soon. Take care.